Steve Earle, welcome back to E-Town.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense, your latest record, but it's also you also did it really well.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it's a
we're
good
proud
collection
of
of songs, and your band cut it, and it sounds really good.
5 days and
Wow.
5 long days, and then just turned it over to Ray Kennedy, and we got right back on the bus and went to East Tennessee and played the night we finished. And then, of course, what happens is the difference between Guy and Townes is like Kerouac and Ginsberg in the sense that they were very different kinds of people, different kinds of writer. And Townes passed away when he was 51, and he didn't write that much the last couple of decades of his life. He wrote a few songs and they were great, but he didn't write that much. And Guy lived 20 years longer, more than 20 years longer, and he wrote right up until he died. And so it's Alan was like that. And if you doubt that, pick up that big collected works of Allen Ginsberg. It's pretty impressive, and that's he was
restless.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It was just the thing of they call these things artists do disciplines for a reason.
Yeah.
Nobody tells us when to punch in, and Guy wrote a lot. So we recorded all the songs, 16 songs, and I still knew I'd disappoint some people. So I stuck to songs, most of the record songs that I knew and was connected with, played with him, was around when they were written. Some of them, of course, the first thing that happened, we finished the record, we go to Hardly Strictly Bluegrass, and a van pulls up with Los Lobos in the backstage area, and Louis Perez gets off, sees me, runs across. He's the lyricist in Lobos, so he's a big Guy fan. He said, "Heard you made the Guy record." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Did you record The Cape?" I said, "No." And he said, "Well, did you record El Coyote?" And I said, "No." And I should have recorded El Coyote, especially. I went in the studio, and a few days later, went into Electric Lady, which is a couple of blocks from my apartment, and I recorded El Coyote and Don't Let the Sunshine Fool You, and that's going to be our record store day release for a 7-inch and just these solo versions, and they turned out really good too.
Just to make Louis happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Louis. I care what Louis Perez thinks. Yeah, it's one of those deals I have for a long time.
Well, let me ask you just quickly about if you remember the first time you met Guy Clark.
Yeah, it was pretty easy because I got to Nashville with a introduction if I bumped into him, but by that time he and Susanna had moved out to the lake, which is that house that Townes ended up passing away in, because Townsend lived in it at the end of his life. But I've been waiting for him to turn up in town, and I walked into Bishop's Pub, and Richard Dobson was behind the bar, and a great songwriter passed away just a few years ago, and he said, "Guys in the back," and there was a pool room in the back, Bishop's Pub, and I had this cowboy hat. Nobody would have recognized me without this black, American, 3X with a beaded hat band on it, and I had it kind of pulled down over my eyes, and I kind of slunk in there, and I got into a corner. It was Guy, Susanna, Jim Stafford, and Deborah Allen. They were shooting pool, and I just kind of sat in the corner, and he was lining up a shot, and then he looked up, and there I was in the corner. He said, "Nice hat," and that kind of started the conversation.
That's all it took.
From there, he found out I knew Townes, and I was kind of in.
Yeah. Did you end up crashing there? Did you stay with him for a while?
I didn't. I stayed on Richard Dobson's couch because I needed to be in town. They were way out in the middle of nowhere. But I went up there and made tapes. And Richard Dobson's couch first, and then him and his wife got in a fight, and I moved to Hugh Moffat's, which was next door. Right.
And you played in Guy's band. You played bass with him for a little while, too.
I did. I was, I took over. Rodney Crowell moved to the West Coast after I'd been there about a year to play in Emmy's band, and which made me the kid. And the kid's duties were play bass if Guy did put a band together for anything, and to talk to Susanna when Guy wasn't talking, because that happened from time to time. Now, he wasn't mad. He just didn't talk sometimes. So.
Yeah. I think what's interesting, Guy Clark, for those of you who don't know, a great songwriter and a disciplined songwriter, as he was saying, who made a lot of stuff, but he also was a guitar builder. And so he would be able to kind of bounce those two disciplines against each other. When one was working, the other one wasn't, and when one was, he could move around like that.
And he painted too. He started painting a lot. He originally was a visual artist. That's what he was trained to be. Yeah. But he was involved in the folk scene in Houston from the beginning. When I used to play this coffee house called Sand Mountain, there was a mural on the back wall, which was Jerry Jeff Walker, Townes, Guy, Don Sanders, and Mickey Newberry. And you could see it very clearly when I played there because there was nobody there, and so I got a sort of shot at the mural. And
All the way to the back wall. There
yeah,
it is.
yeah. So one of those
Clear as
deals.
a bell. Yeah.
Yeah. But he
Now, when you got into, you ran into some trouble as a young person, and when you had your problems with addiction or with going to prison for a little while, was Guy a person who was in your corner at that time?
Well, he was there when I got out. I mean, a lot of people helped. People wrote me notes. Guy didn't do that kind of stuff so much, but it was just sort of like when I got out. I mean, Waylon Jennings wore a bandana on his wrist every show that he played while I was locked up. Emmy wrote me a letter. A few other people did. But Guy was just, one of the first things I did was Guy and Towns and I did a benefit of charity of Susanna's at the Bluebird Cafe, which became a record. And he was kind of hard on me and a couple other people. He just sort of, if your feedback from Guy was like, would be one of two things. It was never more than a couple words. It would either be good work or alternatively needs work. And that was it, But he showed me, Towns would give me a copy of Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, tell me to go read it, and tell me to put the cap on the bottle or somebody will kick it over, which was useful information at that point in my life. But Guy would show me how he laid a song out on a page so that once he knew what the form of the first verse was, that, okay, go down and put numbers down for the number of lines that you need for the second verse, and then you can look at it and you know what you need to do next. And he told me to write. I was writing with a pen. He said, "Why are you writing with a pen?" "Write with a pencil, with a big eraser." And he told me the songs are never finished until you play them for people.
Yeah.
And that probably was the most important thing that he taught me.
That's cool. Well, listen, it's a lovely, as I say, kind of a full circle revisit. I imagine as you chose these songs and as you're in the studio playing these songs with your band, that images and memories and experiences from your time hanging out with those guys must have popped in and been present.
And they do when we play it too. We played the whole record for the first time on the Outlaw Country Cruise, and I got about 3 songs into it, and I realized that I told the audience, I said, okay, I can see what the problem with this tour is going to be. It's going to be, not crying, because it was pretty emotional for everybody.
Yeah.
Even people that didn't know him, because there's something, I think we did find something that in this record that connects you to him somehow, or I hope we did, but I think from judging from the audience that night, I think we might have done it.
Well, he is. I remember him anyway as a kind of a stoic guy. It wasn't that he wasn't fun or he couldn't party or anything, but he was a man of few words. And
I talked a lot, so it was very weird that we were ever connected at all. So he was.
You wanted him to like what you were up to, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We were all trying to impress Susanna because, for one thing, she was a good songwriter too, and I learned how to write songs largely from Towns and Guy, and there were other people around. There's Steve Young, and there was there's a lot of people around, but we all learned to carry ourselves as artists from Susanna, because she was a painter and she was a really, really good one, and. When by the time Susanna passed away, which she died a few years before Guy did, I was a little angry that she never pursued that. That she never, she kind of got into this little world with Guy and her at the center of it, and she quit painting for years, and then later years she started painting again, and their work was beautiful. The cover of Quarter Moon 10 Cent Town. Emmylou Harris record. That's one of Susanna's paintings, because she co-wrote "Easy From Now On," the song that line came from her, and she and Carlene Carter. So
we're going to shift gears briefly, and then we got to get back to music. You are, we all know, a politically engaged person who's paying attention. I'm just trying to imagine what it's like to be Steve Earle these days when you walk out onto a stage. How do you even begin to choose what to talk about, or like how do you? I mean, where do you even start?
Well, the reason that the Guy record got made now, because I knew I was going to have to make it when he passed away, because I do not want to run into him on the other side having made the Towns record. I'd be in a lot of trouble. But I made it now at this moment because the next record, I said, because Outlaw, the last record, everybody wondered why it wasn't more political. And the truth is I didn't know this catastrophe was going to befall us when I was writing those songs. So The next record I said would be just as country, but way more political, and I meant that. And that record's going to get made. But releasing the Guy record now means that record can come out in 2020. And it's not. I'm not stupid, you know. I think about this stuff. Don't expect though, and this is what I've been saying mostly lately, because I'm not just talking about. This isn't about them. Pointing fingers and talking about them, they did it. It's the same thing that what we call the other side is doing when they say it's them that are taking the jobs. That's got to stop. So I want to make a record. I've made 2 Preaching to the Choir records. I'm very proud of them. I'm probably more radical than I've ever been in my life. Just trust in that. But I want to make a record that speaks to people that maybe didn't vote the way that I did, and it didn't have to be that way, and maybe it doesn't have to be that way this time. I want to make a record that can actually change hearts and minds. That's the record I want to make, because I've already done the other thing. So. And the main thing is we've got to go through this process with as much kindness as we can possibly muster, because the meanness is what's killing us politically more than anything else, and killing our democracy, just because it puts people off, it frightens people, it makes people, it's absolutely okay to be angry. I am really angry, but it's not okay to be mean, ever, about anything.
Which reminds me that I want to invite you when it works out sometime for you to attend one of our new events that we're doing here at E-Town Hall, Hippie Bluegrass Church.
That sounds pretty good to me.
Hippie Bluegrass Church is exactly what you're talking about. It's a big sing-along, and read some poetry and find out what we have in common.
Cool.
Everybody comes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Steve, listen, thank you so much for coming back. We got a lot more music to play. Congratulations on making a good Guy Clark record.
Thank you.
Welcome back to E-Town, Mr. Steve Earle. Hi, this is Nick Forster from E-Town. If you want to stay up to date with all the performances, interviews, and behind-the-scenes footage, click the subscribe button. Thanks.